Now we're going to begin the last section of Chapter 2, Basic Chemistry and Biochemistry. An organic compound is a member of a large class of chemical compounds whose molecules contain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Oxygen and hydrogen, H2O, make up water, and that's about between 65 and 75% of the human body. The four major organic compounds are called macromolecules. They are 1 carbohydrate, 2 lipids, 3 proteins, and 4 nucleic acids. Carbohydrates are organic molecules that contain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in a 1 to 2 to 1 ratio. That means 1 carbon to 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen. Some people call it carbon water. It includes both sugar and starches. These usually make up half of the U.S. diet, and they're used for energy. There are 3 major types of carbohydrates. Monosaccharides. Mono means 1, saccharide means sugar, and they're simple sugars like glucose. Disaccharides. Di means 2, saccharide means sugar. 2 simple sugars are joined together like sucrose. And polysaccharides, many sugars. They're large combinations of carbohydrates. These are your complex carbohydrates. Sometimes people can, in the past, have said these are bad. Next is lipids. These are molecules that make up fat. Again, they're made of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, but they have much less oxygen than the carbohydrates do. They provide 2 times the energy that carbohydrates do. If you get too many lipids, they're stored, not used, and that becomes fat. Fat is our energy storage molecule. Lipids are supposed to make up 10 to 12% of your total body weight. The 5 types of lipids are fatty acids, eicosanoids, glycerides, steroids, and phospholipids. Let's go through them. The first type of lipid is fatty acids, and there's 2 groups: saturated fats and unsaturated fats. With the saturated fats, too much can cause heart disease. For example, butter and ice cream. The unsaturated fats are known as the good fats, and they tend to lower heart disease. Omega-3 fatty acids are found in the unsaturated foods like salmon, and they lower the risk of heart disease. An example would be fish, but the fatty fish, like I said, with salmon. And this is what was really interesting with the Eskimos. When they did a study on them, they found that these individuals had no risk of heart disease. It was the omega fatty acids that they found in their high fish and high fat diet, but they were the good fats. Secondly, there's the eicosanoids. They're fatty acids that can only be absorbed in foods. For example, prostaglandins serve as chemical messengers and work to stimulate pain during injury. Also, during childbirth, they help to start labor contractions. Glycerides are large fatty acid chains linked to a compound called glycerol. And there are 3 types of glycerol: monoglycerides, diglycerides, and triglycerides. Triglycerides are number 1 because they keep the body warm and protect the organs by absorbing shock. They also help us absorb vitamins A, D, E, and K. But it can also be bad in that they can absorb pesticides like DDT. Number 4 is steroids. This is the largest group of lipids. An example of this would be cholesterol, and that would be number 1. All animal cells need steroids for growth. It helps regulate the sex hormones like testosterone, estrogen, progesterone. It helps regulate tissue metabolism, and however, here's the negative side: a diet high in cholesterol may increase the risk of heart disease. And number 5 is phospholipids. And they're the most important because they form and maintain the intracellular structures called cell membranes. Next are proteins. They're the most abundant organic compounds of the body. There are 100,000 types of proteins, and they make up about 20% of the total body weight. Remember, proteins are made of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. The NH group is what identifies the protein and makes the different types of proteins. There are 7 functions of proteins. Number 1, they provide support. Structural proteins create a 3D framework for the body and provide structural support for cells, tissues, and organs. They are involved in movement. They're the contractile proteins, actin and myosin, and they allow for muscular contractions. They're involved in transport. These proteins help hormones circulate in the blood. They're called lipoproteins. They're involved in buffering. They help maintain pH levels of cells and tissues. They're involved in metabolic regulation. They help enzymes increase chemical reactions. And finally, they're involved in defense. And the antibodies are proteins that help fight bacteria, disease, and allow blood clotting. Finally, the last macromolecule are the nucleic acids. They're large organic molecules. They're made of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphorus. They store information at the molecular level. There are 2 main types, DNA or deoxyribonucleic acid, RNA, which is ribonucleic acid. DNA has a pairing rule, and that pairing rule says A goes with T and C goes with G. As we can see, DNA is very important in determining our inherited characteristics, such as eye color, hair color, style, body styles, etc. They are made of nucleotides. The nucleotides are sugar, phosphate, and a nitrogen base. The 5 nitrogen bases determine the smallest details. This is how we get our genes. There's adenine A, thymine T, guanine G, uracil U, and cytosine C. Again, DNA has a few unique characteristics. Number 1, it's double-stranded. Number 2, the pairing rule is A with T and C with G. DNA is found inside the nucleus and cannot move from the nucleus. The second nucleic acid, RNA, on the other hand, is single-stranded, and it has adenine A, uracil U. The pairing rule for RNA is A with U, and then guanine G and cytosine C. The pairing rule for RNA is A with U, C with G. RNA is single-stranded and can move in and out of the nucleus. RNA is how we replicate nucleic acids during cell replication.